climbing back upon Mount Soapbox for another rant. And yes, we're back in GTA Online for this particular trip. And by the way, last week when it snowed, while I was out shoveling up my ice and the snow in my driveway, since my house is on a hill, I created a real-life version of Mount Soapbox over on my Instagram. What do you think? Like it? Don't like it? No? Okay, well, I tried my best. Anyway, so let's talk about banning GTA Online. This is from the Chicago Sun-Times. With carjacking rising, Representative Marcus Evans wants to prohibit the sale of violent video games promoting criminal activity. Bear in mind, there was no such thing as carjackings before a game called Grand Theft Auto came out in the 90s. So before the 90s, there were 0.0000 carjackings ever in the history of organized crime or criminal activities, law breaking. But once that game came out, that top-down game on the original PlayStation when I was a teenager, that's the reason why people started carjacking. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic. Back to the article. With carjackings on the rise in Chicago and elsewhere, a Southside Democratic State Representative has introduced a bill that would ban the sale of GTA and other violent games. Representative Marcus Evans Jr. wants to amend the 2012 law preventing some video games from being sold to minors. Friday, he filed HB 3531, which would amend the law to ban the sale of any one of video games depicting psychological harm, including motor vehicle theft with the driver or passenger present. There's already a system in place called the ESRB, and there is a rating system that has existed for video games since the 90s. GTA 5 is an M-rated game. It is intended for mature audiences only. At the end of the day, there's already a system in place at stores like GameStop, Walmart, Amazon. Well, maybe not Amazon because it's all online. But the point is, there's already steps in place and a rating system that's supposed to prevent a game like GTA Online from being sold to minors. It already exists. At the end of the day, it's the failure of the parent, of the legal guardian, from giving in to peer pressure and buying someone that's underage a game like GTA 5 or Red Dead Redemption 2 or some other M-rated game. Continuing, quote, the bill would prohibit the sales of some of the video games that promote activities that we're suffering for in our communities. I feel like these games have become a huge issue in the spectrum. When you compare the two, you see the harsh similarities as it relates to carjackings. Besides addressing carjacking, the bill also changes the definition of a violent video game to one of which players control a character within a video game that encouraged to perpetrate human-to-human violence in which a player kills or otherwise causes serious physical, psychological harm to another human or animal. The Chicago Police Department officers responded to 218 carjackings in January, police said. Walker believes that there's bipartisan support in Springfield to ban sales of the game in Illinois. So you want to outright ban a video game, Representative Evans. Can we go back and look at history at the stats of carjackings in the state of Illinois and elsewhere prior to the late 1990s? Because I'm sure that they fluctuate. You know, some years it's not so bad, others probably higher. But once again, that existed prior to GTA. The entire GTA franchise is not responsible for individuals that choose to go out and break the law. Case in point, I have been playing GTA since I was a teenager. I played GTA, GTA 2, GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas, Liberty City Stories, GTA 4, and GTA 5. And way too much GTA Online. However, I have committed how many real-life carjackings? 0. How many robberies? 0. How many murders? 0. So, as someone who was once a minor, once underage, who's been playing violent video games since I was a kid, like, for example, the Mortal Kombat franchise, the original Doom, and of course the top-down GTA going forward from my teens to early adulthood, and now much older, I have committed zero crimes because of violent video games. And I've played quite a few other violent video games as well, just like Red Dead Redemption 2, Dead by Daylight, Ghost of Tsushima, the list goes on and on. Yet the amount of laws I have broken as a result of all the violent video games I've been playing since I was a wee lad, a kid, an early tween teenager back in the day, is a big, fat, whopping zero. Banning video games will not reduce carjackings or robberies in the state of Illinois or any other state or any other country in the world. It is a sad reality that crime exists. The best things to do to combat crime is education, parenting, and employment opportunities. More jobs, more education allows people to eventually get that necessary degree or trade through a technical school. Now, I don't claim to have all the answers. Unfortunately, crime is nothing new. There has been horse thieving since the Wild West period. Can we blame that on Red Dead Redemption 2 and Red Dead Online? Maybe that's the reason why horse thieving existed back in the Wild West period, because of a video game. If only Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption 2 were never made and were banned, then horse thieving in the Old West period would have never happened. It makes just as much sense as banning GTA for carjacking, when carjacking has been around since the very first automobiles rolled off the assembly line back in the late 19th, early 20th century. Or blaming a video game series called Mafia on organized crime back in the 1930s Prohibition period. Let's not blame Alphonse Capone for all the bad stuff he did in the city of Chicago, since we're talking about Chicago here. Let's blame the Mafia franchise. The sad reality is you have law-abiding citizens, and unfortunately, in any society, you're going to have those that choose to, for whatever rhyme or reason, commit crimes. But one thing I'm sick and tired of is playing the victim card even when you do something bad. Oh, you did something bad. You broke the law. You did this. You did that. But it's not your fault. It's someone else's fault. It's a video game's fault. It's a movie's fault. It's a TV show's fault. It's a book's fault. It's a poem's fault. It's the voices in your head's fault. It's not your fault for carjacking. It's not your fault for robbing. It's not your fault for looting. It's not your fault for killing somebody. When are people going to start being held responsible for their own crimes? When are the 200 plus carjackers in the city of Chicago going to be held responsible for the crime they committed instead of a video game? Now, are there some people that play violent video games that carry out violent acts and deeds and commit robberies? Yes, but the huge majority of people out there, from all walks of life, by the way, have never committed any crimes, and yet they play violent video games all the time. So why haven't they? Why haven't you? Why haven't you? Why haven't I gone out there and done horrific things that we do in a video game like GTA, like Red Dead, etc.? You want to know why? Because most of us are responsible human beings that know the difference between a video game, fantasy, escapism, and reality. Now, when it comes to the underage, I agree with the state representative from Illinois. Yes, M-rated games should not be in the hands of the underage. There's a reason why there's a T rating, an E rating, and then an M rating. Some games are not made for the youth. That is up to the stores that sell the video games. That is up to the parents and the legal guardians to make sure that their children do not get their hands on those video games. However, at the end of the day, that is the responsibility of the parent, of the legal guardian, whether it's an aunt, uncle, grandparent, foster parents, adoptive parents. That's their responsibility, State Representative Evans. I'm just sick and tired of other things being blamed on, except for the person responsible for carrying out these acts of criminality. Whether it's carjacking, graping, killing, robbing, you get the idea. At the end of the day, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, it is that person that did it that's responsible. Now, maybe some have mental deficiencies, and there, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I cannot pass judgment on someone like that. At the end of the day, I do believe that everybody in the court of law in the United States is innocent until proven guilty, including those 200 alleged carjackers, because maybe some of them are innocent. Maybe them were picked up, and maybe they are the victim of profiling. That's a possibility. And I believe that everybody deserves their day in court, their opportunity to stand trial before a jury of their peers. And maybe some of them that have been arrested for crimes committed in Chicago, in the state of Illinois, and elsewhere throughout the United States are in fact innocent, and I hope that they're set free. However, a lot of them will turn out to be guilty of the crime that they actually committed. And guess who they have to blame for that? Themselves. The choices they made in their lives led them down to that path. I've made some bad choices too, but I have yet to commit any major criminal offense, despite playing violent video games since I was a teenager. Teaching our youth right from wrong, responsibility, proper education, as well as job opportunities, these are the things that will help the future generations grow up and be able to go out and get a decent job in the hopes of becoming a law-abiding citizen. You ban violent video games, where does it end? I mean, there's plenty of movies out there and TV shows that have characters that commit carjackings. Maybe we should blame it on TV shows and movies next. Maybe they need to be banned. Maybe any book that talks about carjacking, those should be banned too. Let's get a pile of books together and start burning books that have anything to do with carjacking. On second thought, that might be a very bad idea.